Greetings guys, welcome to a brand new video. I might be censoring the bottom left, I'm not sure, because I started watching this show called Children's Hospital, but it was the wrong Children's Hospital. I thought it was supposed to be a comedy, but it was like a little bit actually kind of awkward once I realized it wasn't a comedy anymore. But anyways, I'm trying to draw a Moth character here for this series I have in mind, which is like a sci-fi comedy. And I haven't drawn a Moth character before. So I've got like reference pictures here of like a guy sitting, and then I have like moths, and I have Squidont. I don't know how to pronounce that properly, because he is probably like, his moths are just like the most aesthetically pleasing from the ones I've seen. I've seen like a lot of anthropomorphic moths. I like looked them up to try to get an idea, and just other ones weren't doing it for me. And it's funny because Squidont is, his style's very simple, but it's like really, really nice. Mine's not that great, in my opinion. I know a lot of people tell me like they really like my art, but I still got a ways to go. Like I'm still not at the point where I'm always happy with what I produce. And this design will probably change a lot. There's some artistic liberties to take when making a Moth character, as it seems, because if you were to do one hyper realistic, like I usually do, not hyper realistic, but I usually draw an animal head on top of a human body for anthropomorphic characters. I don't think that'd work for a Moth. I think you have to turn it into a ball of fluff with two giant eyes. Because if you try to make it look realistic, it starts looking kind of creepy very quickly. And I think you're just seeing me like redesign the face a lot here. The body, I also made it look like too muscular at first. So I kind of redrew it. I hated how the eyes looked, so I tried to draw them red here, because the character does have red eyes, just to see if that'd look better, and it kind of do, but the head shape's kind of wonky. I'm gonna definitely end up changing that here. This is just a rough sketch. As it turns out, moths are kind of harder to give subtle emotions to than birds even. Birds got like beaks that can't like curl up into like smiles or anything, but you know, with a moth, you can't even really draw a mouth, ironically, a moth mouth. As you can see here, I'm watching Donkey Kong Country. Oh no, I'm watching a review of it, which leads me to watching the actual series, which is actually kind of funny, but then they called Dixie Dicks for some reason. They thought that was a good idea. But yeah. No, I'm heavily, you can see I'm heavily inspired by Squidont here. I do draw the feet a bit differently. There's like 3 toes I draw. I think moth feet are the same as their hands and the little thingies I drew there. I did only draw 6 limbs because I believe they only have 6 limbs. Squidont draws them with like 8, I think. Draws them with 2 more of those little pokey pincer things that Kha'Zix has. Now I'm just like, I'm actually sketching this in now, because I wanted to keep this relatively quick. I actually don't expect to really get a prize in this this contest, but I just kind of wanted to draw this character anyways. The contest is Jazza's isolation contest, and I thought the sci-fi space theme would go really well with it. Basically, the series would start with this character stranded in deep space by himself. The rest of the crew has gone missing, and he has to try to use the ship's AI to solve the mystery, essentially. So, yeah, I'm actually surprised that I kind of didn't struggle too much with the feet. Legs and feet tend to be like the hardest thing ever to get right. I think I've forgotten to draw the arm there and I just haven't realized it, but I think I'll get back to that eventually. I will be doing the background very shortly, I think. Oh, there's me going through IMDb and rating each of these episodes, by the way, because I'm a nerd like that. You get to see under the curtain a bit here. Now I've put a little orange gradient here in the background, this way I could draw these little white things. I was a bit lazy, I didn't really shade these white things at the end, I just sort of left them like that, which isn't very realistic for the lighting. Honestly, I might fix it, because it would only take a couple seconds to really put in some shading for those white bits. That was one thing I did differently than Squidot, but honestly, I'm not too sure on it. I mean, it is more realistic to moths, but... Or there's probably moths that look like the way that Squidot draws them as well. But yeah, got a nice What's this? Okay, you just had me talking to Ren there for an excessive amount of time. Guess I took a bit of a break there. So yeah, I don't know much else to say. Like, people ask me for my advice on drawing, and my advice is kind of like, maybe ask someone who is better at drawing. Like, I'm glad people like my art, but I'm far from, like, I've got a long ways to go. Now, I did have kind of a tough time getting this character's body shape, actually. Because at first I did say they were too muscular. So I went with like an anorexic reference. An anorexic type of body type. I think what I ended up with is close to how I wanted it. Kind of very, very slim. And the reason for that is this character, they're supposed to have like a weak exoskeleton, basically like Glass from the Unbreakable series. But he's a bug, so it's an exoskeleton, which I think's probably much worse. Now here I'm drawing the lava lamp. I kind of wanted to make it orange, but I ended up going with green, because I thought green would be a nice, cool color. And also it'd be pretty vibrant, it'd kind of contrast the spacey background I'd have here. Yeah, I wanted to go with orange because he's wearing blue shorts, but ultimately I went with green. And I think that was the right choice. Now you're gonna see me struggle painting stars in the background. My pen was kind of glitchy here because I think I was running my CPU a bit too hot here. What with the Donkey Kong Country and recording it and having all these programs open. But yeah, I ultimately got somewhat of a background in there. And now I'm just trying to lay down shadows, and I switch, and I'm like, hey, what if I put in the light first and then put the shadows after? And I'm just trying to think of where the light's gonna hit on this character's body, and then where the shadows are gonna go after that. And this is kind of the toughest bit for me anyways, for most people I think. Now I'm laying down the really dark shadows. Like you might do this slightly differently, but ultimately I think this method kind of worked. Yeah, I put it on multiply, I think. I think I usually put overlay, but I really wanted dark shadows. So I just went with multiply, which essentially just darkens whatever you're drawing on top of, whatever you're coloring on top of. And I picked a lighter color on an additional layer to do a lighter shadow. I went with like hard shadows because it's sort of not supposed to have this hyper realistic look. It's supposed to look kind of comic booky, I guess. So yeah, that was kind of the look I was going for. I think I'm somewhat happy with it. Oh, here I'm here's me thinking that the voice of Cranky Kong is the same as Aramaki from Ghost in the Shell, which it isn't. But yeah, they had some talented voice actors who no one ever talks about in Donkey Kong Country, actually. The guy who voiced Cranky Kong did an excellent job, actually. So, anyways, I'm just adding a bit of shadows here. I'm kind of struggling to think where should the shadows actually go. Might not be realistic, but also we got wireless lava lamps here in the distant future. Here, I'm mixing up my layers. I'm struggling to get the right one right there. But this is coming to a close. I'm just adding a bit more light. And yeah, that's about it. Yeah, I might do more of these. I'm probably uploading this to Fizzle Talks. Anyways, thanks for watching, you guys.